So the first question that I have for you today is when you started your business 40 years ago, what did strategic planning mean to you versus what it means to you today?
There was no strategic planning. There was tactical, blind luck, hunt, shake, move, zero strategy. Period.
And what was it like operating that way?
We didn't know any better. And where it became evident that we needed strategy was as our business grew, the wheels kept falling off the same rim. And at some point it became untenable.
Untenable. And so what was it like when it was untenable, when it felt that way?
We were good at what we did, so we got more work and we hired more people with more problems and fewer systems, with no plan, no budget, no direction, just more juggling balls faster with thorns on them.
And you were just you were kind of accelerating that with.
Well, at a certain point, we're excited about how fast and how many balls we were juggling. That was our pride until we started to burn out.
Is there a moment that comes to mind where there's like the pride just kind of started to weaken or?
Wasn't so much that. I think it was we went from 2 million to 4 million in 1 year. And the ability to tolerate BS was legendary. And at some point, if we did 4 million to 6, it would have been intolerable. As a matter of fact, it became intolerable. And that's when I fired half my staff 1 year.
Oh, yeah. Those are some ugly turns and ugly stories.
Ugly and unnecessary.
Unnecessary. Yeah. And so you think that you wouldn't have had to have any of those violent bases if you'd just done things in a more strategic way?
Yeah. So strategy is not doing certain things. So what am I not going to do? And that keeps you safe. And so, if we would have had somebody who advised us along the way, who'd been there on the journey before us, we might have had some more tangible results. I had a mentor, my uncle, except he was, in the hundreds of millions of dollar league, and there was no connection between what I was doing. So he told me what to do. He didn't tell me how to do it. And so, the how was the part that I think for small business is the hard thing to figure out. What shouldn't I have done and what should I have done and in what order? That's really what it comes down to.
And a lot of businesses struggle with the how in your experience.
Oh, yeah. They have no clue. What's next? Should I hire a salesperson? Should I hire an operations manager? Should I take a pay cut to afford that move? What am I going to do? I think the key thing is the currencies are time, money, and grief. So it's interesting. I was just having a consulting session with somebody, and I said, you made a great profit this year. Would you be willing to give that up? Some of it to hire somebody so that you could have 800 more hours to yourself to either spend time on the business, not in the business, or alternately to spend time with your family. And the answer was yes. So everybody's profit. Well, part of the profit is a time profit. And most people don't recognize that. So they're not willing. If you're in pursuit of the almighty dollar, it's great. There's going to be collateral damage for sure.
Yeah. People often don't see time as a currency that they're paying to get something.
And it runs out. Worst of all, it runs out. So if you don't manage the time properly, including things like building your balance sheet over time, so compounding the wins, and you just keep reinvesting in the business where it doesn't actually stick somewhere where you can say, oh, I can use that money for something. You're going to actually become idle. You're going to build a business that nobody wants to buy that's bigger. And that's kind of a bad strategy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And can you share a specific time when a strategic plan saved your business during a tough economic period?
That's an interesting question. Strategic plan saved the business. Yeah, I would say that we were proactive in shedding people before the sales went down. So we saw the sales dying. And so that's when we sold trucks, sold assets, shrunk the crews, made the crews better in anticipation of lower sales. And our ultimate strategy, if the sales were there, was to hire subcontractors to pick up the slack if the revenue did come in. So we knew everybody else was going to be slow, and so were we. So if we could shed that extra fat faster, we'd be able to be lean and mean. And then at the same time, there's other companies that have excess capacity that we could actually get at a deal.
So ironically, a tough economic time can actually make you better as a business.
Oh, it's the best thing ever. If you can survive it, and then you take those lessons and you turn them into your standard operating procedure, your standard strategic method of work, you are going to be exceptional, codified.
And so what are some lessons that you learned strategically when, tough economic times came, and how did that influence your future kind of way of operating as a business owner?
So the irony is, as we got better and we started to salt money away on the balance sheet, we could actually take advantage of those recessions and buy businesses at discounts because the owners are under distress. So the irony of it is actual opportunity. And, everybody works too hard. There's no question about that. Not everybody works too smart. And so we learned to start working smarter. And that is an unusual talent that can be trained. It can be trained. And it doesn't have to be learned the hard way necessarily. So, I had to learn it the hard way. So now I know what not to do. And then now I help people avoid it through learning from others rather than on their own mistakes.
And another question, how has strategic planning guided your decisions on which services to add in your business or which services to stop offering?
So a couple of strategic rules: never add services to peak demand. So if you think you're going to grow your business and then add tons of revenue in May and June, that's the definition of insanity. You're already redlining. So, when we add services, it has to fill the slower periods. So one of our strategies now is to buy houses, renovate them and flip them in the winter when we're slow. And worst case scenario, we rent it out. And so now it's a new strategy to flatten out our sales curve. So it's understanding that we don't pile stuff on top of stuff at the wrong time. So you got to get your wins right. When are you doing it?
And are there any services that you were offering that you ended up no longer offering that you can share?
So we were in and out of maintenance. We were in and out of snow. We're back into maintenance. We're buying maintenance businesses. We needed to find the right person, the right company, the right customers. So we have that dialed in now. And then on the snow, maybe we'll buy a snow business. We just have somebody who loves snow, and that's not us. So if you don't love it, you're probably not going to be very good at it. You can find somebody who loves it, then that's something that I think we would add to our service mix. And it'll have to be buying someone's business for sure. If we're going to add that, no way we would do it organically. It's too much work.
Yeah. Yeah. So timing is such a big part.
Timing's huge. And timing is also when I meet the right person. So it's the right business, it's the right person, the right leadership team. It's the right time for us where we have money that's not, pursuing other investments. So we have to, it comes down to timing. And then you have to have the desire to do it. So part of our strategic plan is, yes, we're going to start a snow business. We're going to buy a snow business, and we're going to get into snow the right way. And it's going to cost us X, and here's our budget to do it. Let's go. And actually, the next part is return on investment. So how fast if I spend $1 million, do I get my money back in 5 years, 10 years, or 1 year? And so the closer I get to 1 year, the smarter the decision.
And what role did your strategic plan play in scaling your team and moving from, owner operator to leader?
Yeah. So CEO thinking is incredibly uncommon. That's why there's so very few CEOs. And I would say having the meeting structures that I ran, and then I started having my management team run the meetings without me. Well, first I was there, and then and then they ran without us, and then they report to us about what happened in the meeting. And so, the magic to all of this, no word of a lie, is implicit trust in people and implicit trust in systems. So I have a system. I am absolute control over making it perfect. The people are much harder. However, if I get the right people and the right systems, I'm going to get great outcomes. And it's really quite simple. So part of our strategy when I look at anything is how do we develop implicit trust? And that is the magic.
Implicit trust.
Implicit trust.
So how do you build that into your strategy?
So, great question. So the question is, are the processes great? If the answer is not, you have to work on the process to get it to be absolutely trustworthy. So a great example of that would be the airlines, where they have a checklist that they have a pilot and a co-pilot go through together to make sure that they're both accountable and they haven't missed anything. And it's more fun. So that would be a strategy to make sure that we don't miss anything, so that the plane doesn't leave without enough fuel, or there is something not working properly. Everything's tested before we go, and we build a business around it. Now, the next part of that is the pilots. Who are the pilots? Do I have cowboys flying the planes, or do I have methodical, procedural people who are cool under pressure and are incredibly trainable in terms of procedure? So that's psych profiling. So our strategy then is to find the right person with the right profile to do that job day in, day in out, and enjoy it. And so, a friend of mine's a pilot, and they do wicked psych profiling on their pilots. Like, you can't afford to have a cowboy flying planes unless you're maybe a stunt pilot or something. But these big commercial carriers, it's a certain animal, and there's not many of them, and they've got to find them. And if they don't have people like that, then the planes crash. It literally is that important. So think about how amazing their processes are. And their implicit trust is our planes don't crash, because the highest value that we have is safety. So when your plane's delayed, you should be grateful, because if it wasn't delayed, it might crash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm wondering, because the stakes are less high sometimes. I mean, obviously they're high, but maybe in landscaping, they're not necessarily, they don't necessarily involve hundreds of people dying if something bad happens. It might be, $20,000 mistake. But yeah, there are crashes that happen in landscaping. And I'm wondering, is there a crash that you've had in your business that came from a lack of planning that you feel like, oh, now you have to kind of plan around it, maybe create a system to make sure it doesn't happen?
I would say that there's a lot of luck in life. And so this is a roundabout answer to the question. There's a lot of luck in life. And, we were just hosted an event at Koivek's facility, phenomenal facility. And it's interesting, his philosophy, and I completely agree with it. The last job you did is your branding. And so, when you screw up a job, it hurts you financially, it hurts your reputation, it hurts your heart, it hurts you in every way. And so again, it goes back to, like, how do we prevent errors from happening? And those errors then lead to warranty at the wrong time of the year when you should be generating revenue, which reduces morale. There's just like this cyclical thing. So get it right the first time, which also goes back to planning and preventing failure. And so if you take the airline analogy and you literally live that, we will prevent failure. You will get ahead way faster, way safer, and you'll actually build your balance sheet and your goodwill in your business. That was all I'm going to say.
Well, it makes sense.
No.
How do you plan for major industry changes, like new technology or environmental regulations, without getting distracted?
Great question. So have we ever made a mistake chasing a shiny object? Absolutely. The two big shiny objects, I think, are AI, and the other one is marketing. Those are the two shiny objects. And so have we ever spent too much money on marketing without being assured of what the risk and return is? Absolutely. Have we ever thought about pursuing AI to automate our business? Absolutely. I keep going back to what Elon Musk said. Do not automate anything until your systems are perfected. Then automate. Because then you're just automating chaos and you're creating workarounds that work for you and for nobody else. So I want to have amazing systems. And then when I have the amazing systems, then I can automate. And I think a lot of people are going way too fast on AI. It might work for them, but I don't think you're going to scale your company based on sloppy systems that have they've got funky workarounds.
Yeah, because every time you make a change to the system, you have to re-automate.
Correct.
Which is like a nightmare.
A nightmare, yeah, it's a nightmare. So process. Is it the perfect process? If it works based on first principles, which is based on preventing failure, and you do it once the right time, you're going to get the right answer.
And as you grew your business, how did your plan shift from focusing on, say, like more sales to focusing on having a secure profit?
So it focused on first improvement. How do we improve? And so the currencies are time, money, and grief. So if you don't get rid of the grief, you lose the people. And so if you have great processes, you get rid of the grief. And if you get rid of the crappy people, you get rid of the grief. And if you have great money, you can keep the great people and have no grief. And if you have great people, they're going to take care of you and your customers, which means you're going to make more money. So yes, you can make more money, and sometimes you will pay for that later because that great person will leave. You might make as much money, except then you got to work another 1,000 hours to make up for that person missing. So what's your mindset? Is your mindset money first? Or is it no grief, great time, and then money? And it really comes to what your approach is. And they can all work. Trust me. It's just, you look at who's divorced. You look at who had a nervous breakdown, who had a heart attack, who died with a lot of money in the bank and didn't do anything with it. So it's very clear to me what is success. What is success? And I think success is absolutely hard work. It is who I've surrounded myself with, my life partner, my business partners, my peers in the industry. That's what success is. And some money so that I have some flexibility, and then freedom in that order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it seems like the focus is more just on having the right values and on improvement, and then the profits come.
100%. Yeah. You can drive profit. It's just you'll pay in other ways sometimes. And it is interesting to see. I mean, I see a lot of businesses. Who are the successful ones? And I mean success. I mean successful human beings, not successful people, or just business people. Who are successful human beings? I look at their wives, look at their husbands, and like, man, check the box. I look at the kids, check the box. I look at the way they treat people, check the box. I look at their financials, check the box. I look at their teams, check the box. Right? I mean that's incredible. And isn't that what we really should be working at?
And it can't be easy to get all those things in order.
And so, what does your annual strategic planning process actually look like today? How you keep it simple enough and effective?
Super simple. Super simple. We have 9 boxes. 9 boxes. Number 1, I got to be a better leader. I guarantee you, every company that's successful has a great leader. You cannot have a bad leader. So that's the number 1 box. The second box is knowledge. What do I need to know in order to make smart decisions? And then the next box is my philosophy of improvement. How am I going to get better? Like, what is the method to get better? The box after that is, how do I actually manage the finances to be able to afford all of these things? The next box is, how do I employ the technology to integrate all these things and have less people, better communication, better culture? On the human resources side, how do I attract and retain the best people? And obviously, if you have bad people, you can get rid of them. On the operations side, how do I have the best equipment, the best scheduling system, the best delivery systems, the best materials, the best tools? How do I have that? That's actually probably the easiest of all of them to solve. And most of the pain shows up there. And then I go, how do I have the best sales? Which is interesting, which comes down to, first, what's my network? And then how do I create the best brand? And then how do I tell people how great I am? And how do I get them to actually want to hire me? So that's the sales and marketing box. And the last box is the growth box. How am I going to grow? And there's a whole bunch of different ways to grow. So there's organic growth. There is vertical integration. There is when you're a business, you're taking on a similar business, a sort of an augmentary business. There's horizontal integration. There's franchising. There's different ways to grow. And you might be growing in one box and not the other and thinking, I'm not doing that well. It's very hard to do all of them at the same time. I do not recommend it. Usually choose one box and work on that. And growth also, the last, which is the most important growth, is improvement growth. So I'm growing my bottom line, not my top line. So what growth am I focusing on? And can I manage the type of growth I'm taking on? And how do I optimize as opposed to make something the most efficient to get the best return on my time, my money, and my grief? And so 9 boxes, really simple. And typically I go to the sales box and the growth box last, and I focus on the other boxes. And then I'll go and buy a business, or then I'll vertically integrate, or then I'll buy a complementary business. I'm always focused on improvement, though. That doesn't end, and that is a type of growth. And most people get that wrong. And the irony is, if you get to the point where your improvements are so amazing, then it's easy to do the other types of growth.
So how do you manage all the boxes? There's these 9 boxes. There's some that are more important to focus on. But how is it not overwhelming? Because it's simple, but there's still a lot within each box.
Yeah. Well, I know it's so, well, first of all, I avoid box 8 and 9. So that limits my number of boxes. And the leadership one's not a big deal. I just have to have a mentor or go to school for it. The knowledge is something where I should be working on, focusing on learning what are my blind spots, which I need to find out. So we have a tool for that. Well, method of work is the most important thing. SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, with questions designed to set you up for success based on what's going to kill you first. So if I went to the economics box, first thing that's going to kill me is cash flow. How do I solve that? And so if we resolve that, then I've got a little more oxygen to survive whatever I'm doing. And so what we do is we go through the SWOT. We list every single question, 121 questions, different numbers of questions in each category. We check off strength, weakness, opportunity, threat. Fantastic. Now we circle back and we go, well, what's our priority number 1, priority number 2, priority number 3 to fix? We color code that as red. In other words, it's urgent. Then our next most important ones are orange. So that's the 4, 5, and 6. I may never even get to those. If I solve even one of those priorities, I'm already further ahead. And then I have my opportunity boxes, which I typically avoid when I'm working on making my business better. Unless it's idiot-proof. An idiot-proof opportunity, it really does have to be idiot-proof. No effort, no time, no money, and I make more money. Let's do it. So I get that sorted, and then I have a outcome. This is my 6 priorities, 3 urgent, 3 important. Who's going to do it? How much is it going to cost to do it? When's it going to be done? And am I able to do it myself? And do I give approval to make this happen? Because a lot of people have ideas. They don't put the money or the time or the people to the initiative. And so this is where if you have a strat plan and you have somebody who's what we would call a change management agent, somebody who's able to drive the change to conclusion without interruption, you'll be successful. And then you knock off those issues. So you go to your SWOT the next year. Same thing. That thing that was a weakness becomes your next priority. You change it, you knock it off, and you do that every single year. And sure enough, you will solve your biggest problems in the order that they are in the year that you're in until your business is all green boxes checked off, strength, 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 strength. And now you have a turnkey business. And that is a plan. And that's how it's done. And prioritization and accountability. The accountability is the document that you check yourself against. And the accountability is who's going to do it. And then the other question is, does the person have the capacity to do it? So as we talked earlier, if I don't have a strategist on my team and I leave this to tacticians, we're never going to get to where we're going. So if your team doesn't have a strategist, which is highly likely in a small business based on statistics, you've got a problem. We also do psych profiling to make sure we find out what kind of players we have on the team. Do I have goalies, defensemen, centers, wingers? I can tell you what the wingers can do, and I can tell you where there's a problem and why they're on the wing. I can tell you what the defenseman can do, and I can tell you why they're not a winger. And I can tell you why the goalie isn't any of those as well. And so if I use the sports metaphor, you're building a team. And you may have a weak left defenseman. You might need to get somebody who's a strong left defenseman, who's either right-handed or left-handed, to help change the play. And so it really does count as strategy. And I think sports metaphors are, if those that are interested in sports, it really is a great way to understand business. It's a sport. You're playing a game, and you essentially want to win the game. And by the way, you are competing against others. What you're really competing for is talent and clients. That's what you're competing for. So it's not more, it's better. Better wins. That's my strategy.
Do you think that business owners are trying to do too much at once? Is that the problem? Is it that they're working too hard? Is that a problem? What's the biggest strategic problem for business owners now?
It is ignorance. It is lack of execution skills, hard choices. And of course, juggling too much is absolutely one of the biggest problems. And also, if they're only focused on profit, they're not really building a business.
And as a last question, after 40 years, how has your strategic focus changed from growth to building a long-term legacy?
Legacy, interesting. So there are 3 categories of employee. There is someone who's dependent, there's someone who's autonomous, and the best of all are teachers. So I think the legacy will be, I taught a lot of people to be better business people, to think like a CEO. And I'm building a business now that is based on core principles of learning, care, intrinsic trust, implicit trust. And I would love to have that perpetuate through the world and alleviate suffering, help families, help employees. That would be my legacy based on process, great people, and ultimately phenomenal cultures. If you love this video, please click the link below. We'd love to work with you to help you become better. Our goal is to challenge you to think differently, to overcome some assumptions that you may have about how to do things, and to work with your team to create alignment so that everyone succeeds and everyone's pulling in the same direction. So we want to make sure that you get your time back, we lower your grief, and ultimately your profits go through the roof.